Hey, I'll be wearing my Coach Prime t-shirt tomorrow. Colorado is a 10.5-point home underdog. I like them against Arizona. My listeners in Ohio, loving the Bet Park Sportsbook app. Cleveland, Cincinnati, Akron, Columbus. This is for you. Pro Hoops, College Hoops. There we go. College football tomorrow. Pro football on Sunday. Oh, let me tell you what's going on Sunday. Cleveland's a 6-point underdog at Baltimore with an over-under of 38.5. Cincy, a 6.5-point home favorite hosting Houston. Pittsburgh, the black and gold, 3-point home favorite hosting Green Bay. Get in on the action. Have some fun. The Bet Park Sportsbook app. Got to be 21 and in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, or Maryland. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Enjoy the Bet Parks Sportsbook app like I do. Don't wait for the big game to have prop bets. Do it for every game. Thank you, Bet Parks. Time now for headlines from the Smerconish.com Friday edition of the newsletter. I was really interested in an announcement that was made yesterday because it just brought back a lot of memories. Former New Jersey Governor Jim McGreevey is going to run for mayor of Jersey City, where he's been residing now for several years. And there's just so much that I recall about the scandal that led to his resignation from office. Interestingly, that resignation was in 2004. In fact, I pulled Wikipedia just to remind me and make sure that I tell it accurately. We can trust them, right? During his gubernatorial tenure, McGreevey, who was then married to Dina Matos, appointed Israeli national Golan Sapel, wow, I haven't said that name for a long time, as counselor to the governor advising on Homeland Security on August 12, 2004, following threats of a sexual harassment lawsuit from Sapel. McGreevey publicly acknowledged his homosexuality and stated that he had engaged in an extramarital relationship. He also announced that he would resign the governorship effective November 15, 2004. Do you remember this, TC, when he stood up and he said, I am a gay American, and he had his then wife, right next to him?
Right. I mean, I will absolutely will never forget that. It's something he said something about my truth. My truth is that I am a gay American. And but that I don't think was the issue per se that he had to resign for. I think the issue that he had to resign for was that he gave his boyfriend the job that he wasn't qualified for, if my memory serves correct.
Your memory is correct. Now, here's something else, a little trip down memory lane. I'll come back to that announcement in just a moment.
Okay.
But so this all went down in August of 2004. In May of 2004, I know you're going to laugh when I say this, but were we working together then in May of 2000?
Yes.
We were.
21 years, okay. Michael. 21 years.
So May of I'm slow on the uptick here on the math. So in May of 2004, he was a guest of mine every once in a while when he was governor. The proximity of Pennsylvania and New Jersey and the media market of Philadelphia dominating all of South Jersey meant that John Corzine, when he was governor, Chris Christie, when he was Jim McGreevey, Christine Todd Whitman, they would be guests of mine on radio.
Absolutely.
So in May of 2004, this is May before the August everything hits the fan, Governor McGreevey was a call-in guest of mine when I was doing Morning Drive, and we pulled this from the archives. Thank you, Alice. Dan has the audio. This is Jim McGreevey with me before the scandal and me asking him about an urban legend that turns out to be true. Let's listen. Let's put to rest what I expect is going to be an urban legend, but you never know. Have you ever been denied communion? Have you ever approached the altar and been denied communion?
Yes.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
So that actually, and in what context?
I'd rather not. I mean, it's just, an individual made a decision. And I guess what I'm saying is I disagree with the church's, with the bishop's decision on this. I will respect it. The bishop is the bishop of the diocese, and as such, he ought to be afforded the respect of his office and position.
I mean, that was pretty stunning at the time because it had always been whispered about that, Jim McGreevey, he was an altar boy in his youth, that one time he went up for communion because he was pro-choice, having nothing to do with the later revelations about his sexuality, but having to do with this issue of he's Catholic, but he's pro-choice. Should he be able to receive communion? And he confirmed for me that day that he'd gone up, very humbly to accept the sacrament and was denied. So that stood out in my mind. You wanted to say something?
Am I wrong in thinking? I'm just thinking, am I wrong in thinking, was there an issue with President Biden in that at some point?
Okay.
Not
true that it's always been discussed, like, can he
right.
and yeah, there was somebody in the Catholic chain of command who I think spoke of, but I don't think it's ever happened with Biden.
Right. I don't think it was something he actually was in church and was denied.
No, and by the way, it's also been said about Pelosi. I don't think this is the only case. Like it always gets whispered about, but it's the only case that I'm aware of where you had a politician who confirmed that he was denied communion. Okay, anyway, so now it's August of 2004, and the scandal that we've referenced with Golan Sapel comes to light. McGreevey is standing there and then resigns soon thereafter. And of course, the question was, what did his wife know, and how did it feel for her to be standing there when her husband says, I am a gay American? Obviously, the marriage didn't last. He's now running for mayor of Jersey City. And what I found interesting, and for 2025, but he announced yesterday, and the way that he announced was with a video. And in the video, it's McGreevey looking at a television feed of his resignation speech. And as a political matter, I thought this was really interesting. This is all under the banner of second chances. So my point is, he chose to deal with that first because he obviously knows that people are going to say, Jim McGreevey, oh yeah, you remember when he resigned because he had this relationship, but he was still married, blah, 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 blah. So it's much more a visual thing. I've put it on the Facebook page. TC put it on the Facebook page. But I want you to listen. This is his announcement video, and hopefully you'll get the juxtaposition of sort of the current McGreevey looking back at the McGreevey who in 2004 resigned.
One has to look deeply into the mirror of one's soul and decide one's unique truth in the world. And so my truth is that I am a gay American. I engaged in an adult consensual affair. It was wrong, it was foolish, it was inexcusable. I accept total and full responsibility for my actions. I have decided the right course of action is to resign.
I'm imperfect, and I'll always be imperfect. It's important to take accountability, to do the next right thing. It was painful, but I would not have traded anything that I've experienced. It's made me a better person, more compassionate. A lot of the guys and gals that I work with come from difficult circumstances.
You get it? So initially it was the audio, it was actually video in the announcement of him resigning, and now it's him saying, okay, that was me, I'm imperfect, here I am, I want a second chance. From the political website in New Jersey, the Jersey Journal, the resignation pronouncement was front and center Thursday morning when the 66-year-old began his 2025 Jersey City mayoral campaign with a 3-minute, 24-second video that invoked second opportunities, family, community, and most of all, the affordability of living in Jersey City. You heard him say the line, I was imperfect and I'll always be imperfect. By the way, TC, he is one of now 2 candidates, more are apparently going to announce, looking to follow 3-term Mayor Steve Fulop, who was a guest on this program within the last, 3 weeks?
I know. How about that? Talk about a familiar name. Yes. So current mayor of Jersey City, Steve Fulop, was our guest because you were talking to him about whether police should be able to use cannabis, their words, to be able to smoke weed in their free time. The issue is that it's the state law versus federal law, and the federal law prohibits people who are drug users from being gun owners. And so therefore the sort of workaround is that he does not believe that police should be able to smoke pot in their free time and then come and use guns. So he's trying to have the federal law be the law of the state and therefore be able to say cops cannot be cannabis users.
Jim McGreevey, the former governor, now wants Steve Fulop's job as mayor of Jersey City. Steve Fulop is leaving the mayoralty, and what does he want to do? He wants to run for New Jersey governor. So musical chairs in the Garden State, and we'll. By the way, I conversed with Dan and with Alice. It turns out that in 2006, now 2 years after McGreevey has left office, and I remember this well, I hosted him for a live event, book club. He wrote a book called The Confession. We have it, and we're going to release it on Monday as another installment of my book club podcast. So honestly, it's such a collection of individuals who comprise the authors of books that we have in the book club podcast. Some real gems and many more to come. So please listen to that podcast. Listen to TC After Dark, my daily podcast now, which includes focus on the daily poll question and the book club podcast. More headlines now from the Friday edition of the Smerconish.com newsletter. Poll results from yesterday, which is more predictive for 2024. I think, gang, the 23,276 of you who voted yesterday, and I thank you for voting, I think a lot of you were exercising wishful thinking. Because remember now what I was asking. You have all this polling data that says that Donald Trump is in a commanding position vis-a-vis Joe Biden. Say it more simply, Michael. He's winning in the polls, in the battleground states or in the national surveys. And the polling data may be wrong, but it's very consistent in showing that there are questions about Biden's age. It's really not a numerical thing, but you know what I'm talking about. That Trump is regarded as someone who, you might not like the personal aspect of Trump, but he was good for you economically. And that's put him in the driver's seat, at least as of now. Then came the Tuesday election, and Democrats had a big night Tuesday. Big night in Ohio, big night in Kentucky, big night in Virginia. So which matters more? 86.86% of those who voted yesterday said that the Tuesday election results are a more reliable predictor of what's to come next year than all the polling data. Today's poll question at Smerconish.com, will Joe Manchin run for president? The number one item in position in today's newsletter and on my website right now is an essay that was published by Joe Manchin explaining himself in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. And Manchin says, serving the people of West Virginia as a state legislator, secretary of state, governor, and U.S. senator has been the honor of my life. You know, what a privilege for the last 42 years. But then Joe Manchin says, but this moment in the nation's history is so filled with peril and political dysfunction that I want to work not only for my beloved West Virginia, but for all Americans. I mean, that doesn't sound like somebody who is going to retire on the houseboat, right? That sounds like somebody who is at the beginning of a race, not at the end. So vote today on the poll question, will, not should. I didn't want to make this, do you want to see this? I want to make it, you've got to predict. Is he about to get in? Is he going to be a no labels candidate? That's today's poll question at Smerconish.com. TC, this caught my eye. High-end brothels busted in Fairfax County and Massachusetts, catered to politicians and executives. What's this all about?
Okay, so amazing that it caught your eye. Yes, evidently, the Justice Department has now busted 3 gentlemen who were running a very high-class escort service. The 3
Is that a contradiction in terms? Is that a contradiction in terms?
No, I think one only needs to look at one's imagination to think that there are low-class establishments that are sexual in nature, and these evidently were high class. So evidently they would have the women go between Virginia and Massachusetts, and here's how the operation is believed to have worked. This from Northern Virginia Magazine, and you can find it at Smerconish.com. Customers would go to websites to book appointments with mostly Asian women, where they gave their names, email addresses, phone numbers, employers, and references.
Oh my God!
Like, what are we applying to college here? What's going on?
What happened to cash and carry?
I mean, I think that's the lower class. Do you know what I'm saying to you? Like, this is really like, you gotta be all in. They would be text confirmations and a menu of services that ranged from $350 to $600 per hour, according to the affidavit. The women provided the services, paid in cash, in high-end apartments. And then they identified 2 apartment complexes, one in Fairfax County, the Avalon Mosaic, Anyone? I don't know. And one in Tyson's Corner, Hanover Tyson's. Those are both in Virginia. But they would go back and forth from Virginia to Massachusetts. And evidently, the clientele is like a laundry list of politicians and high-end businessmen. So we shall see if those lists come out. But evidently, the lists exist with references.
Speaking of sex,
I don't know.
You of course remember Dr. Ruth Westheimer. Now, I have to say I love this story. I want to get her on the program soon. Hallelujah. Sure. I'm reading now from 1010 Wins. 1010 Wins is like the legendary news radio station in New York City. Hallelujah. That was the reaction sex therapy icon Dr. Ruth had Wednesday when New York Governor Kathy Hochul told her she was now New York's new ambassador to loneliness. The appointment was announced Thursday by the governor. Ruth Westheimer is now 95 years old. She becomes the nation's first loneliness ambassador. In that role, she'll work to help New Yorkers of all ages tackle the growing issue of social isolation. We've talked about this, the need to mingle, afflicting both the young, the adolescents in this country, as well as our seasoned citizens. So Dr. Ruth to the rescue. Sex is not the answer. It's just that, she's dialed into the demo and she's concerned about it. I love this story. This is a sort of a postscript. Tracy Chapman is now a Country Music Association award winner for Fast Car. Of course, it came out, we talked about this in 1988, but came back now in 2023 because of Luke Combs' smash hit cover. I love both their versions. We've previously played them on air and asked people which one do you like, but how cool is it that she does get the recognition that she never had back then?
I love that because what happened was he won for Single of the Year. So he won the CMA for Fast Car for Single of the Year. But then she won for Song of the Year because it goes to the song's writer. So he brought it up and he thanked her, which is so cool. And then she had she wasn't in the audience, but had a speech that she said, I'm sorry I can't join you tonight. It's truly an honor for my song to be newly recognized after 35 years after its debut. It's so cool. So I like how the two of them play off each other.
We have spoken here recently of the Stefan method of airplane boarding, the Smerconish method of airplane boarding. We've talked about how United is using some aspects of the Stefan method, maybe not so much from the Smerconish method. Now the Delta CEO is being asked, well, like, what about you folks? He was on the Today Show and he said that the carrier has tried every which way to board customers. We have found that actually just boarding people and getting people moving through the plane is the fastest. Every time you add another feature, it gets more complicated. I do agree with that. I think he's coming down on my side of this, which is just like, let it happen, but let's get in there in a hurry and maybe even let people keep all their luggage together in a newly configured aircraft. That is the Smerconish method.
Oh boy, there's the Smerconish method. Too good. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. I like how he said, yeah, if it works, we'll copy it. Otherwise, we're not going to do anything differently.
Hey, gang, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Please give us some play with the multitude of podcasts that are associated with this program. A programming note. If all goes according to plan tomorrow, on CNN, 9 a.m. in the East. Please be watching at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. A potential future First Lady will be my guest on CNN tomorrow. Mull that over for just a moment. Who might be that guest? I sent a note to my buddy Larry yesterday, and I left out future. I simply said the First Lady will be my guest on CNN. He's like, oh, you have Jill Biden? No, Jill Biden, Dr. Biden, will not be my guest on CNN tomorrow, but one Cheryl Hines will be. I think that'll be really interesting, to be married to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and go through this campaign with him. And obviously she's put up with a lot of pressure of people who have tried through her, to impact his political viewpoint. So should be a great show tomorrow. Hope you'll be tuned in. Have a great weekend. See ya.